From rape allegations
Andrew Wilson's a rapist.
to body shaming
Put the Dunkin down for a second and give me an argument.
and making fun of the feminists.
Let's go. I could just stop.
All while being unable to open an olive jar and allegedly being a rape apologist.
Grape is bad for certain people.
No,
For certain people.
no, it's
This is the curious rise of ex-robotics mechanic turned blood sports debate executioner, Andrew Wilson. Where does his morality really come from, and is he justified in such aggressive and combative discourse? A man of alleged grift and ethical immorality unraveled. Andrew didn't start out as a full-time internet debater or the face of uncompromising Christian ethics online. He came from a working-class background and spent years as an industrial mechanic, more specifically robotics repair, a hands-on trade that involved long hours and practical problem-solving. Like many in the early 2020s, the lockdowns gave him extra time at home, where he began engaging in online arguments. What started as informal discussions quickly evolved into something much bigger. His father had taught him young how to pick apart a weak argument, and that logical foundation helped him stand out in debate circles. Over time, he transitioned from the shop floor to creating Debate University, hosting The Crucible, and turning verbal combat into both a skill and a platform. His entry into the broader manosphere and debate scene included appearances on shows like Fresh and Fit, where the environment was often chaotic and unfiltered. One notable early spot captured the high-energy, intense exchange with another guest, where Andrew was confronted and condescended to by a roided-out ex-con named Wes Watson.
It does not.
I don't
hugely,
fit no fucking studies.
It does not
bro.
hugely improve a person's
Are
life.
you proud of who the fuck
Bro,
you are?
why
Well,
don't
look
you
at,
even
are
let
you
me
proud?
kids?
If you look in the mirror, would you guys say this motherfucker's proud of who the fuck he is? That's a bag of trash, dude. Pull your fucking shirt
Because
off.
I've been-
Tell me you're fucking proud
Because
of
I've
yourself.
been to fucking prison?
Jesus Christ,
Because
look
I've been
at
to
you,
prison?
bro. You got 10-inch arms and tits. Men don't have tits.
No,
you
they
guys.
go to prison where they get
Yeah,
where
they
get
do.
fucked up the ass.
You've never been to prison. Look,
That's
he's
what
talking about
happened.
shit you don't know.
Andrew held his ground amid the noise, but it was a far cry from the more structured panels he's known for today on whatever, modern-day debate, or even Piers Morgan. On the personal side, Andrew met his wife Rachel in their 20s. Rachel had children from 2 prior relationships. As Andrew himself explained in one of the responses to critics, Rachel had kids from her high school sweetheart relationship, followed by a marriage that ended in a divorce.
I met my wife. My wife had children from her basically high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And then she was married and divorced. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out.
Yeah.
But same thing. She completely devoted her life to me.
Yeah.
She's been fantastic.
He has described meeting her and recognizing the challenges of the situation, but noted that she became fully devoted to their life together. The couple has been married for years now, and Andrew has spoken of raising her children as his own. The family they built includes the blended dynamic common in many modern households, though it has drawn public scrutiny given Andrew's strong public stances on traditional family structures and sexual morality. One of the most difficult chapters in their story came with profound loss. Andrew has opened up about Rachel's youngest son, the boy he had helped raise since he was a baby. At age 10, the boy was in a car with an older neighbor who took the vehicle without permission. The joyride ended in a high-speed crash into a tree, and his child was killed.
Do you have a son?
I did. He died in an accident. When he was 10, he died in a car accident.
You got to be kidding me.
No.
I am so sorry to hear that. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's no harm, no foul. He didn't know, you know what I mean? But yeah, when he was, so I had him since he was basically 2. This was Rachel's youngest son. So, yeah. So I had him since he was 2. When he was 10, he went over to watch a movie at a friend's house. His friend was the same age. They went to school together. While they were both over watching the movie, the older brother stole a car, his parents' car, put him inside of it, took it out on the road, and basically hightailed it into a tree and crushed him to death. So the other kid who was driving, he went out the front window.
The other 10-year-old?
No, he wasn't 10. This was the 10-year-old's older brother.
But the 10-year-old was in the car as well?
Nope, he wasn't.
What? Why did he take his brother's best friend?
What the police said.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, this is what this kind of the speculation was you know how younger kids look up to older kids? You know what I mean? That basically he wanted to impress the 14-year-old by Yeah,
The
you
10-year-old.
know, yeah. Well, yeah, I'll go with you.
Or the 10-year-old wanted to impress the 14-year-old.
Yeah, I'll go with you.
Did the older kid, the one that flew out the window, pass away as well?
No.
Oh, wow.
He made it?
He made it, yeah, thank God he made it. He had a broken arm. He went out the windshield, he had a broken arm.
Andrew has described this tragedy in raw terms on a podcast, explaining how it reshaped his sense of duty, protection, and resilience. It remains one of the most personal and painful details he shares, adding weight to his emphasis on his family's stability and strength in the face of hardship. Religiously, young Andrew and the Andrew we see today represent noticeably different phases. Early in life, his faith background was more Protestant. Around 2021, he and Rachel both started inquiring about Orthodoxy and were baptized a couple years later. This shift brought a deeper commitment to traditional Christian ethics, biblical views on gender roles and marriage, and a framework that sees modern culture as in need of spiritual correction. Today, Andrew frames almost all his debates through a Christian ethicist lens, rejecting both progressive social changes and certain red-pill prescriptions like casual promiscuity or materialistic alpha hierarchies. He argues that without a grounding in God, morality drifts to ambiguous preferences, shifting like the wind. From an Orthodox Christian perspective, the faith stresses humility, grace, repentance, and the fruit of the Spirit alongside moral clarity. Andrew's debate style, direct, unrelenting, and sometimes dismissive, sits in visible tension with the calls for charity, grace, and turning the other cheek, something he's most criticized for in Christian circles and by bigger creators. From a secular viewpoint, his consistency in applying traditional principles to cultural issues feels authentic to his audience, particularly when backed by data on family outcomes or demographic trends.
And right now what we can do is we can look at the data of single mother versus single father households, and the single father households outperform them by every single metric.
At the same time, the blended family reality and the aggressive online persona raise the recurring morality mystery. How neatly do the preached ideals line up with the lived path that got him here? Andrew has addressed the hypocrisy angle directly, acknowledging statistical cautions around single motherhood while defending his own marriage as an outlier built on commitment, not casual patterns.
His situations require nuance.
Right.
There may be times where I attack a single mother for the conditional of being a single mother, depending on why.
He maintains he doesn't shame individuals without cause, but critiques broader cultural patterns leading to the degradation of society from his religious perspective.
So for instance, let's say that there's a woman who says, I'm a single mom by choice because I hate men and don't want my kid to have a father in their life, right? I'm definitely going to attack that position.
Yeah.
But that's not attacking her because she's a single mother.
Yeah.
That's attacking the conditionals around why.
Early in his debate days, Andrew went toe-to-toe with heavy hitters like Destiny and Vosh in long, intense sessions. These weren't polite exchanges either. They were marathon clashes over Christian nationalism, morality, and worldview fundamentals. The no-mercy approach that defines his style today was already visible even before the full Orthodox framing. Taken together, Andrew Wilson's background is neither a flawless redemption arc nor a simple gotcha story. It's the record of a blue-collar guy who grinded through trades, navigated real personal complexities, endured devastating loss, and found a sharper ideological home in orthodoxy. He now uses that platform to argue forcefully and at times harshly for traditional values in a secular age. Whether the full picture reflects coherent conviction tested by life's messiness or highlights gaps between rhetoric and reality is something observers continue to debate. He remains above all a complicated figure who turned personal experience and hard-earned logic into a very controversial public figure. Andrew Wilson anchors his entire moral framework in Eastern Orthodox Christianity, but asserts he is not a religious creator. Rather, it's the most logical foundation to hold when debating.
The Catholic Church gets a lot of shit for this. Well, look at all the horrible things that the Catholic Church did. It's like, well, the Catholic Church was the whole known world once.
Right.
You know, all of Europe was the Catholic Church.
Atheists would obviously disagree. He presents orthodoxy not as one optional spiritual path among many, but as the historic, unchanging ethical standard capable of addressing human nature, family structure, gender roles, and societal order in a fallen world. In his appearances on shows like the Whatever podcast, Modern Day Debate, his own show, The Crucible, and more, Andrew argues that Christian ethics, drawn from scripture, church tradition, and patristic teaching, provide objective grounding for morality that secular systems cannot replicate.
Okay, so my moral justification is that I make an appeal and I ground my epistemology and ontology in Jesus Christ. And I think that you can't get to knowledge philosophically without having grounding. So the thing is like, that's how I would ground my morals for you ought not do that. However, the problem that you have is that secular states are rising up everywhere. And the appeal to Jesus Christ is not rising up. And so if it's the case that secularism cannot make an appeal for why men ought not do this outside of preference, then aren't you just laid bare by men's preference?
He contends that biblical principles on marriage, including headship and submission, the sanctity of life, and cultural engagement have historically produced stable, innovative societies. Many foundational breakthroughs in the West emerged in culturally Christian contexts as well, such as orphanages, hospitals, and universities, to name a few. Atheists and secular humanists directly counter this in exchanges with Andrew, such as his debates against Dr. Richard Carrier, Dr. Phil Zuckerman, or panels of secularists. They point out that today's most advanced, prosperous societies, measured by GDP, life expectancy, education, scientific output, and human development indexes, are often the most secular, with high rates of atheism in places like Scandinavia and parts of Western Europe. Progress in science accelerated once it moved away from theological constraints during the Enlightenment period, and high education populations naturally trend towards secularism. Critics argue that secular humanism, grounded in evidence and reason, maximizes human well-being without supernatural claims, and that modern success ride on past Christian foundations while shedding restrictive dogmas. Andrew responds that these secular societies are largely riding on borrowed Christian capital, built on centuries of moral instability, objective ethics, and institutional trust that pure secularism struggles to sustain long-term. Both sides interpret the same historical and current data through fundamentally different lenses, leaving the debate unresolved. At the heart of his applied ethics is force doctrine, a descriptive observation about power in the real world. Andrew maintains that rights are not self-evident abstractions floating above biology or history. They exist only insofar as they can be enforced.
Force doctrine is the critical belief that rights come to women specifically from men, that women always have to appeal to men for the rights collectively.
Men, on average, hold a practical monopoly on physical force due to differences in strength, aggression, and willingness to use violence. Therefore, many modern rights, particularly those associated with women's equality, depend on men collectively choosing to uphold them. He presents this not as a call for tyranny, but as unflinching realism. Without enforcement, ideals collapse. The doctrine surfaces repeatedly in gender debates, where Andrew uses it to explain why feminist gains rest on the very patriarchal structures they critique. From an orthodox lens, it reflects the fallen world's brokenness. From a secular standpoint, though, critics call it reductive or pessimistic about human cooperation and law. Andrew Wilson has brought his signature force doctrine into many high-profile arenas such as Piers Morgan, Stephen Crowder, Tim Pool, and even Joe Rogan, using it to challenge feminist arguments in front of a mainstream audience. The doctrine becomes especially pointed when paired with real-world examples of strength differences and social order. The argument? Feminism rests on an illusion of independent female power that only exists because men have collectively allowed it.
My argument is simply this: how do feminists ever take out the patriarchy without appealing to an enforcement arm, which is going to be necessarily patriarchal? How's that even possible?
Well, there could be robots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there could be laser beams.
These appearances helped introduce Andrew's force doctrine beyond the manosphere echo chamber, sparking divided reactions. Supporters praised the unflinching realism, while critics accused it of veering into might makes right territory that clashes with his orthodox Christian emphasis on moral order.
Okay, tell me my positions in. What is force doctrine?
Force doctrine is that whole theory that might makes right. Essentially, it is.
But in reality, Andrew only claims might makes, not whether he thinks it is right or wrong. This leads directly into Andrew's perspective on patriarchy. He views it as the default, functional, and often benevolent organizing principle of human societies rooted in biblical male headship and biological reality. Patriarchy, in his framing, is not systemic oppression, but a protective system in which men exercise authority primarily to safeguard, provide for, and lead families and communities.
Men would take all the power if they could.
They can.
Yeah, they would take away our right to vote tomorrow if they could, but they can't.
Which brings me to the question
you have
I've been trying to ask for like 30 minutes.
You have what is called a benevolent patriarchy.
Well,
And because
no.
the patriarchy is benevolent, they don't like to see women uncomfortable.
Okay, so-
they have worked.
they don't like to
They
see
don't.
women uncomfortable.
They have worked tirelessly inside of the Christian ethic to do everything that they possibly can do.
All men
So that
work within the Christian
women, most men in the side of the United States did, yeah.
He argues that even in hypothetical matriarchies, women would still rely on men for the application of force and protection.
Well, there really weren't ever matriarchies. There were matriarchs, but they really, all of their force conditions for the monopoly on force were still upheld by men.
In debates, he has stated that more extreme feminism ironically pushes society back towards patriarchal defaults. He points to historical and statistical patterns showing the male-led structures have enabled the very rights and safety nets feminists champion. He contends that rejecting patriarchy in favor of egalitarian experiments has contributed to measurable declines in family stability, birth rates, and overall happiness for men, women, and children alike. The moral question this raises is whether defending patriarchy as a benevolent necessity squares with orthodox calls for humility and mutual service in marriage, or whether it risks framing authority in ways that can appear dismissive of individual dignity from a secular viewpoint. Closely tied to this is his critique of feminism. Andrew Wilson views modern feminism as a net negative ideological force that has disrupted natural and biblical gender roles, weakened the traditional family unit, lowered birth rates, and contributed to broader societal instability. From his Christian Orthodox perspective, feminism promotes an egalitarian illusion that ignores biological sex differences and the scriptural principles of male headship and female submission in marriage.
When I say gender divide, women in the role of female gender roles and men in the role of male gender roles. So that's the divide I'm looking at. No, I'm not looking at a divide of like men and women not being close to each other. I'm looking at the divide of I don't want sameness when it comes to gender roles, because that's really bad and it does not suit society very well. So
he argues that it has encouraged women to prioritize careers and higher education over marriage and childbearing during their peak fertility years, resulting in delayed family formation, increased single motherhood, and greater reliance on state systems that he sees as unsustainable long term.
I think it would be a much wiser idea, prescriptively, from the government top down to begin running any type of propaganda possible for women.
Stop. He's answering the question. Stop interrupting.
Okay.
For women to move into marriages younger rather than older. And the reason why that's a good thing is because it negates a lot of that damage to the body. It negates a lot of these fucking problems where women are now, we're under the threshold for having our own kids. You're a conservative, you don't like mass migration, women got to have more kids. Otherwise,
it still doesn't answer
they're going to have to have more kids.
What do you want out of a woman in exchange for you being a gentleman?
Oh, for me to be a gentleman? Oh, no,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be a gentleman to any woman.
Okay, thank you for.
I'm not going to be a gentleman to any woman at all, ever. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got equality.
He breaks down what he sees as contradictions and claims about female empowerment and societal progress, highlighting how feminist ideology often leads to outcomes that harm the very women it claims to help. Examples of this would be losing children rearing years in order to pursue education, which he argues education can be attained later in life, or even the prioritization of career over family, which he states has made women less happy overall, citing statistics on SSRI usage, declining birth rate, and even the ever-increasing divorce rates. He purports to be mainly pushed by feminist ideology and rhetoric. He frequently ties his feminism critiques to his force doctrine. Feminism's gains in rights and protections exist only because men, as the class holding the practical monopoly on physical force, have collectively chosen to grant and enforce them rather than revoke them.
Mm-hmm. And so since men have a monopoly on force, women are always going to have to appeal to a patriarchal system to enforce their rights. Therefore, it's true feminism and dismantling of patriarchy is never possible because they're always appealing to the patriarchy in order to enforce their rights.
In his framing, attempts to dismantle the patriarchy are incoherent because the very rights and safety nets feminists champion depend on the benevolent patriarchal structures they criticize, or so he affirms through visceral societal realism. He critiques the narrative of unpaid labor in homemaking as oppression, arguing instead that traditional domestic roles historically provided greater stability and mutual benefit for both sexes. Andrew contrasts modern feminism with a pre-feminist or biblically ordered society, noting higher historical virginity rates at marriage and more stable family structures before widespread shifts toward female higher education and workforce participation. While he acknowledges that some early feminist goals, such as basic legal protections, may have addressed genuine issues, he maintains that overall movement has gone too far by rejecting divine order and promoting relativism. From an Orthodox Christian standpoint, feminism represents a spiritual rebellion against God-given hierarchy and complementarity From a secular perspective, critics accuse him of cherry-picking data or romanticizing the past. Andrew insists his position is descriptive realism about a fallen world, not prescriptive cruelty, and he often links feminism rise to weakening of Christian cultural influence. Andrew extends these ideas into controversial and oftentimes offensive political questions, depending on who you ask, including the right to vote. He has critiqued women's suffrage as a development that, while granted by men, has contributed to policies that divide families and undermine traditional structures, such as expansive welfare states or progressive social engineering that he links to lower marriage and birth rates. In debates, he has explored whether voting should be structured to avoid pitting husbands against their wives as separate political units, suggesting the franchise was a privilege extended rather than a natural, irrevocable right.
Okay.
I think one way that you can take care of this is you take the right to vote and you give it to married households instead, one household voting.
Ooh, that's
I think
nice.
that's a really good idea.
I like that idea.
One of the reasons that's a good idea is right now in the current state of voting, the anti-suffragettes, the ones who were against feminism initially, and it was first wave feminism that brought in the suffrage movement to say that women should be able to vote, they made it one of the most compelling arguments, which is this will divide household against household. It'll divide husbands against wives. The second women become political pawns of the machine, they will be divided from their husbands. That's exactly what's happened.
He ties this back to force doctrine. Since men historically held and granted suffrage, its expansion reflects male choice, not an inevitable moral progress. This means, within Andrew's framework of force makes, not to be confused with might makes right, the right to vote can be taken from women or anyone for that matter, as long as the force is there to pursue it. From an Orthodox perspective, the concern is preserving the domestic church and family unity. Secularly, opponents label the stance regressive or anti-democratic, arguing it undervalues equal participation regardless of outcomes. He maintains he is describing observed consequences rather than advocating disenfranchisement outright, but with keeping in mind his self-believed descriptions of reality, not to be confused with prescriptions. It's the inherent differences in men and women that lead to a different level of responsibility within society, which ultimately leads to differences in rights from his worldview. A parallel moral tension appears in his views on the draft and conscription, which ties directly into a man and a woman's right to vote. He highlights the asymmetry men alone have historically borne the ultimate obligation of national defense through selective service, while women gained voting rights and other protections without equivalent burdens.
My argument is very simple, that if women can vote, but women cannot use the mechanisms of force against the enemies of the United States and only men can, then women can vote to send men to war. And since the domain of war is always going to be men, if women have the power to send them to fight wars, that means that they can send them to fight wars on their behalf. And that is a great, I would say, immoral position to take, that you can have one elite group which does not have to fight wars, send another non-elite group to fight them on their behalf.
In debates on whatever, he has pressed feminists on whether true equality would require women to register for the draft or share combat roles proportionally. And even if they were forced to conscript, Andrew leans heavily on statistics of frontline combat demographics mainly being held by men, opposed to support roles within the military which occupy more women. This leads him to question who is taking the real risk of losing one's life, even if forced to conscript. Andrew claims these differences stem directly from human biology and how men have the ability to, for example, carry more weight, not have a need to menstruate, etc. He notes that biology and traditional roles explain the current exemption, but argues that feminism's demand for rights without corresponding duties creates an unfair societal contract. Andrew has expressed general opposition to the draft itself as coercive, but necessary. Yet he uses the issue to illustrate how secular egalitarian ideals often ignore sex differences and male disposability. The moral question here is whether insisting on these imbalances reflects honest realism about human nature or risks reducing people to biological utility in ways that conflict with Christian teachings on the equal worth of souls. Andrew's views on atheism and secularism are even more stern. He remains sharply critical and argues that without a transcendent anchor like God, morality fragments into subjective preferences or raw power struggles. Atheists and secular humanists, in his view, often inherit and benefit from the moral capital of historically Christian societies, concepts of dignity, charity, and truth, while rejecting the source. In heavyweight exchanges on modern-day debate against figures like Dr. Richard Carrier, or groups of secularists, he questions whether purely reason-based ethics can sustain the very norms secularists claim to value. He does not paint all atheists as personally immoral, but doubts the worldview's long-term coherence, pointing to cultural shifts on family, gender, and rights as evidence of drift. Andrew's most controversial clips and opinions seem to stem primarily from his frequent debates with Onlyfans creators and participants in sex work on whatever style panels. Applying his Christian framework, he challenges the long-term personal and societal costs of commodifying sexuality, linking it to weakened commitments, declining family formation, and broader cultural decay. These interactions leave Andrew sitting in a moral gray zone for secularists primarily, as he's often accused of verbally abusing and taking advantage of unknowing and uneducated sex workers.
But when I see certain behaviors coming out from some of the female guests, there's no way you didn't know that they were going to respond in a certain way, or just be like massively underprepared for like the pressure of coming on a big show, or like you kind of know what personality, and like obviously Andrew knows exactly what strings to pull, and you can get a reaction out of that. And right, it's the clip economy, so it is what it is, but there absolutely is a pattern there. I mean, you can go through
I'm
reels.
To be completely honest, I don't ever know who's going on the show until the day of the show.
Well, whoever's in charge of booking, then, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, but you
can look at their
reference
content.
me.
No, I said
like
you're good
Andrew.
at pulling strings. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
but that can't be because I have a preconceived notion of how to do this with the person.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that literally until the day of the show, Brian does not actually share that information with me.
Is this the truth from what I've seen? Not likely. Every individual he chooses to engage with agrees prior to talking or debating on the show and are never forced into speaking. There does need to be recognition here. For all the evil intent people opinionate Andrew to have, he consistently has shown up to debate YouTubers with less than 1,000 followers, all the way up to substantially larger creators like Matt Dillahunty and Destiny, to name a couple. These segments, primarily on the Whatever podcast, often blow up into rage quits.
So you can ask him questions if you'd like, and I will be right back.
Because you run the show?
I just won't be back. And we already
I don't give a shit. What do I care? I'm here to have a debate, not listen to your whining. Do you want to have a debate or not?
All right, I'm not going to be talked to like this.
Or even potential assault, but that'll be covered later. A lot of what people complain the most about, though, seems to be his use of strong language, including the frequent use of profanity.
Literally said to me, I know that this is a sin, it's of the devil, and I'm gonna do it anyway. How's that not spitting in God's face? Explain
You're
it.
disgusting. You're disgusting.
Explain it.
That's fucking
Explain how it's not
disgusting.
spitting in God's face.
You're a disgusting
banged.
human
You get
being.
banged on camera, you're worried about me being disgusting?
I can already tell that
You take in your mouth in front of other men and I'm the disgusting one? Can you explain one more time how you can spit in God's face and then pretend that you're obeying his will and I'm the disgusting one? Can you explain that?
Literally, you suck. I don't really give a about your opinion
Yeah, suck
anymore.
it. That's what you do for a living, not what I do.
Which has drawn substantial scrutiny in his own Christian circles, although it seems to come more so from what he calls the sewing circle Christian groups, and not orthodoxy as much, although he has had substantial freakouts within that realm.
That's all my messages with Peter Wright, you fucking idiot.
Go ahead and read them.
There's none to read. You dolt. That's all of them, you fucking idiot.
Andrew defends it as situational clarity in a coarse online environment rather than uncontrolled anger, distinguishing it from malice and stating it's an effective tool to convince people of his opinions. Many Christians and conservatives see a clear tension between Andrew's sharp, profanity-laced rhetoric and the biblical emphasis on charity, patience, and guarded speech. But without these exceptions, is this justifiable behavior? Just like force doctrine, force makes. Just like how arguments convince, regardless of how they're delivered.
Let's start with, which issue do you think that I'm making an issue out of that isn't actually an issue? Let's start with that.
I think that just the whole idea of being in an ideological war is not actually real. I don't think that that's a real thing.
Great.
U.S. conservative activist Charlie Kirk, co-founder of Turning Point USA, was fatally shot while speaking at Utah Valley University in Orem on Wednesday.
This topic hits close to home for Andrew. Just days before Charlie Kirk's assassination, Andrew had a heated debate go viral after his opponent insisted there was no ideological war taking place. 5 days later, tragedy struck Turning Point USA losing their strongest voice. Debates still persist to this day on the motivations of the alleged shooter, which Andrew leans solely on being ideology-based. In the years following 2020, Christian nationalism surged as a visible force in American conservative politics, with figures like Charlie Kirk emerging as its most prominent public face. Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, blended evangelical Christianity with aggressive political activism, railing against secularism, feminism, and woke culture while pushing for a society explicitly shaped by biblical values. His rhetoric was fiery, but still operated within mainstream Republican and Protestant bounds. Pro-Trump, pro-life, pro-traditional family, and staunchly anti-atheist. Andrew Wilson's rhetoric shares stark similarities with Kirk's. Both men frame modern secularism and progressivism as existential threats to Western civilization. Both argue that Christianity must not remain a private faith, but should actively shape law, culture, and public policy. Both critique feminism as a destabilizing force and defend traditional gender roles as rooted in biology and scripture. Clips of Andrew contending against egalitarian arguments on whatever echo Kirk's campus's speeches and Turning Point events in tone and substance, unapologetic, data-heavy, and willing to call out cultural decay without softening for politeness. Yet Andrew takes the position noticeably farther right, where Kirk operated as a broad-tent conservative evangelical appealing to large audiences. Andrew's orthodox framework is more uncompromising. He explicitly lives by force doctrine, regardless of right and wrong. He questions the long-term wisdom of women's suffrage in certain contexts, and frames patriarchy as not just tolerable, but benevolently necessary in a fallen world. His jarring debate style, built through hundreds, if not thousands of debates, treats verbal combat as spiritual warfare rather than persuasion. He doesn't present as a gentle pastoral voice calling people to faith. He shows up to oppose worldviews in the intellectual arena of debate. The irony is chilling in light of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Kirk's opinions, while polarizing, were still relatively mainstream conservative Christian fare. Andrew's views are more extreme and niche within the manosphere and debate space. If Kirk could be gunned down for the lesser version of this rhetoric, the rise of Christian nationalism carries real stakes, and Andrew's selectively sheathed, more unyielding sword may be testing the same dangerous waters. What brings us to question, what is the cost of America's unyielding free speech laws in such a tense political and cultural climate? And would Andrew Wilson be willing to die for his aggressive, unapologetic, and often perceived more extreme ideology? Should these laws be altered in order to prevent similar tragedies, or should it be reason for more staunch support for the First Amendment? One of the most inflammatory controversies surrounding Andrew Wilson erupted during a heated Whatever podcast debate in May of 2025. While discussing consent, morality, and logical consistency with the feminist debater Oliver, Andrew made a statement that quickly went viral as rape apologist content. The opponent framed Andrew's words as him literally defending or downplaying rape.
You could make the case that, like, rape is bad for certain people.
No.
For certain people.
No, it's bad for everyone.
No, it's only bad for certain people. Here,
Andrew.
like, there's women, you agree, who have orgasmed during SA.
Critics accused him of suggesting that some women enjoy rape, implying it isn't always bad. Reaction videos and social media posts painted it as evidence of deep misogyny, with some calling for him to be deplatformed. The outrage portrayed Andrew as crossing a moral line by treating rape as something that could be good or enjoyable for the victims involved. In actual context, Andrew was not arguing that rape is morally good or acceptable. He was making a narrow, provocative philosophical point about logical consistency and outliers. His opponent had been using extreme or outlier scenarios to challenge general rules, a common tactic Oliver was using. Andrew flipped the framing by noting that one could technically say rape is good for certain people, while acknowledging the victim might derive some form of gratification or benefit from the act, not that it was morally good, justified, or should ever happen.
What's the prescription?
The prescription is you should wait until sex to have marriage, or wait until marriage to have sex.
And the outcomes are better.
The outcomes can be better for certain people.
Well, no, for most everybody, the outcomes are better. At least from the reported data. When you say, like, certain people, it's like, okay, dude, yeah, I guess you could make the case that, like, is bad for certain people.
No.
For certain people.
No, it's bad for everyone.
No, it's only bad for certain people. Here, like, there's women, you agree, who have orgasmed during SA.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA.
Bro.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA. Are you kidding me?
Bro, I didn't say whether or not it's SA. I said during SA.
Yeah, what does it have to do with anything?
Well, bro, if that's the case, right, then was it bad for them?
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because there are overriding harms than just orgasm. I'm not saying that's not the case. What?
Perfect. So then here's the case then. The case is like when you say for some people, right? The reason you keep saying that is because even though it's the vast overwhelming majority of people, you want to like create this little minutia outlier, right? Is it logically possible that there's ever been a woman who's been essayed who'd enjoyed it?
I'm not going to.
Can you answer my question? Is it logically possible?
Logically possible? Sure.
Okay.
Andrew's intent was to expose what he saw as sloppy reasoning. If the opponent relied on rare exceptions or subjective experiences to undermine broad moral claims, Andrew was highlighting the same logic applied back. He has repeatedly clarified in follow-ups that rape is objectively evil and a grave sin from his Orthodox Christian perspective. The drama exploded because the raw clip, stripped of surrounding context, sounded horrific when taken at face value. Critics ran with the most inflammatory interpretation. He thinks rape can be good, while Andrew and his supporters called it deliberate misrepresentation designed to paint him as a monster. In the broader pattern of his no-mercy debate style, moments like this fuel accusations that his blunt, reductio ad absurdum approach sometimes produces sound bites that are easy to weaponize, even when the underlying point is about logical consistency rather than moral endorsement. Only 3 days later, on May 19th, one of the most meme-worthy and oddly persistent moments in Andrew Wilson's career occurred during a Whatever podcast debate with Nema in 2025. The incident began when a viewer made a $1,000 donation requesting that Nema attempt to open a jar of olives on stream as part of the lighthearted but pointed demonstration related to physical strength differences.
Pop champagne.
Yeah, that's for the
What up,
olive
guys?
jar. Bring it.
Savage destruction tonight, Andrew.
Oh, I don't want to get a
Cheers.
pickle jar.
It's an olive jar, so it might be easier. We weren't able to find. Sorry, we couldn't find the pickle jar. Go ahead, put it on the corner there.
He paid $1,000 for a pickle jar. You should get a pickle jar.
Nema struggled to open the jar. She then turned to Andrew and told him to try. Andrew, visibly reluctant, took the jar and attempted to open it, but failed as well.
For $1,000.
Hey, the guy sent $1,000.
Yeah, but it seems slightly immature.
It's just
slick
now.
It's a little.
See, it
little
is.
I gotta grip it.
Uh-oh, Andrew. If you can't open it either.
Well, your hand greased the whole top of it.
My hand are fine. Here, high five.
It
My
literally.
shoes are slow.
It's look, feel it. Isn't that greasy?
It was like that already. Oh my God.
No,
you're
it
ridiculous.
wasn't. You greased the top.
Use
Oh
your
my
shirt.
Jesus,
Use your
Andrew.
shirt.
If you can't open the olive jar, you cannot
Here,
blame my
while we're
hand.
doing olive jar.
If you're so strong, you should open it.
Yeah, I got to be able to grip it.
Okay, we'll grip it. Let's
It's
go.
literally slippery.
He later explained that her hands were greasy, making the lid slippery. Eventually, the jar was opened by Jake Rattlesnake, one of Andrew Wilson's close friends and frequent collaborator. He stepped in from off camera and popped it open quickly. Andrew later opened a pickle jar in the same podcast, although this clip is often overlooked.
All right, I didn't get it.
Give it another. Come on.
No, it's
Gotta
so
tap it.
hard.
You got to tap it. All right. Let's see. Do it on the table if you can.
Oh,
Wait, put it on the table. Put it on the table.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I got myself.
Oh, no. There we go. Okay.
Just gotta be able
wow.
to
You know, you undersold yourself a little bit. You undersold yourself.
The moment was memed heavily, with many critics using it to mock Andrew's masculine red pill branding and suggest hypocrisy when discussing strength and gender roles. He later addressed the controversy in follow-up appearances, accusing Nema of misrepresenting the details and claiming the incident was being blown out of proportion for clout. One of the most serious accusations leveled at Andrew came during a live stream conversation between British personality Tilly Middlehurst and Not So Erudite, also known as Kyla. In the now removed original video, Tilly repeatedly called Andrew a rapist on camera, stating variations of Andrew Wilson is a rapist and framing him as someone who does not believe in informed consent.
Because of the fact that he's a rapist. Andrew Wilson's a rapist.
Oh.
Tilly based the label on Andrew's past public statements about consent within marriage.
I mean, he's admitted on live streams before on his podcast that he doesn't really believe in what he understands the modern version of consent to look like.
She referenced clips where Andrew has argued that marital rape in the traditional legal sense does not exist in the same way as stranger rape, or has used provocative phrasing like, "I've raped my wife, I don't know how many times," in a debate context to illustrate his views on implied consent in long-term relationships.
You're saying that men have to think that they're doing the act in order for them to be motivated to do the act?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that men don't commit unknowingly.
Okay, so this guy is his wife, which, by the way, means that my wife, I don't know how many times.
That's a weird thing to admit.
No, I'm fine with it. Like, if
You're fine saying that you've wife?
Yeah, if you think that me rolling over in the morning and she's asleep and waking her up with sex is
Well,
then I'm fine with it.
She's unconscious?
She's asleep for sure.
That's unconscious, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If she had too much to drink and passed out?
Yeah, we've done that too when we're both drunk. Yeah.
Well, I mean, where she passed out.
Yeah. She's also me by this metric too. She's woken me up with sex.
Well,
I didn't consent.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying here. Are you saying that you've your wife while she's been passed out?
I'm saying while my wife has been sleeping, I've woken her up with sex many times, and vice versa. So did we each other?
By definition, yeah.
Yeah. So we're both. She me sometimes. I her sometimes.
Tilly presented this as evidence of dangerous attitudes towards consent. Was she justified in the accusation? Objectively, no. Tilly did not claim Andrew personally raped her or anyone specific. It was a rhetorical escalation based on interpreting his philosophical debate positions as literal admissions of criminal behavior. Andrew Wilson was framing his and his wife's marital implied consent based on his opponent's worldview, not his. To be clear, Andrew has never been charged with, or admitted to, or been accused of any sexual act. From both Orthodox and secular perspectives, publicly branding someone as a rapist without any evidence of a specific crime is widely seen as reckless and potentially defamatory. Andrew responded by announcing he is pursuing legal action for defamation. He stated he believes he has a moral obligation to act, arguing that casually accusing people of rape without evidence could ruin lives and increase unheard violence towards the unproven accused. From a secular perspective, the accusation is classic online hyperbole, turning controversial debate rhetoric into criminal label without evidence. It highlights the danger of weaponizing serious allegations for rhetorical effect, as seen by Tilly in the previous clip. The entire video perfectly captures the high-stakes, clip-driven nature of Andrew Wilson's world. Provocative statements meet even more provocative pushback, often with real-world consequences. During a heated feminism and toxic masculinity debate on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Andrew got personal with one of the panelists. A, fluffier woman.
It should be the mother in the intact home and the wife and the caretaker at home, not the girl boss. That's insane. And it's a societal death sentence. Walsh knows it. Everybody knows this at this point. If you can't reproduce your own nation, you don't have a nation.
Do you know how...
Okay, Julie, you wanted to jump in there.
I mean, do you know how insecure and pathetic you sound? You can't take you seriously.
Eat another donut, lady.
I'll just finish. I get that you reckon that you're some big shock jock, and I know that you're desperately trying to be relevant, but you sound so insecure and so pathetic. You are
Do you have an
irrelevant.
argument? Can you put the Dunkin down for a second and give me an argument? Do you have an argument?
The remark was widely interpreted as body shaming, implying she was overweight, distracted by unhealthy food, and unable to focus on Andrew's arguments. Many viewers called it a low blow that crossed from ideological disagreement into personal attack. Andrew's defenders argued it was sharp, in-the-moment retort, rather than premeditated shaming, with claims of her interrupting, making emotional appeals, or avoiding direct engagement. Andrew was simply calling out what he saw as lack of substance from her end. Did her previous comments towards him justify the snappy retorts from the Christian paradigm? Andrew has always held the view that when someone hits you, hit them back harder, and justifies this view by stating that more often than not, they're less likely to make low blow attacks again. Oddly enough, from a secular view, this would seem morally consistent. But many Christians would also argue, from a scriptural perspective, quoted from Luke 6:27-28, "Bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you." Interpret that quote and validity as you will. With Andrew's staunch and persistent views on being blunt and direct with his speech, it does seem unlikely for him to change his long-standing views on speech and persuasive rhetoric. Supporters viewed it as a classic no mercy, Andrew Wilson style, blunt and unfiltered, consistent with his approach within all debates and panels, where he refuses to soften criticism for politeness. Critics, however, saw it as hypocritical and mean-spirited. A man who presents himself as a defender of traditional Christian values and moral order was personally mocking a woman's physical appearance on national television. This was arguably the most explosive drama in Andrew Wilson's public career, unfolded during a whatever debate on November 9th, 2025. While debating worldview consistency with feminist and leftist debater Enemy Charlie, the conversation turned to traditional family values and step-parenting. At approximately 4 hours and 16 minutes, Charlie calmly stated, "Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before."
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you
you
lick sniz.
Under your religion.
You lick sniz.
What is that?
You're a fucking dyke. Don't talk about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your stupid mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby
What did
daddies?
I just say, dyke?
Your wife with the 3
Sorry,
baby
I'm sorry,
daddies?
dyke. Is she morally inconsequential in comparison to your ditch licking?
Andrew immediately snaps back, and many argue he did so quite aggressively, raising his voice and personally attacking Charlie. The panel descended into chaos, with Rachel Wilson eventually entering the stream herself to defend her past.
I'm here to debunk your nonsense and keep families together. I don't give a shit. I'm not willing to sacrifice children and children's lives on the altar of women's feelings anymore. Women like you who think they're expendable, who think they need to be killed in the womb so that you can party. Women like you who think that the family can be a bunch of gay dudes having designer babies together. Women like you who've destroyed society and made this world a nightmare.
Critics framed the comments as a gotcha exposing hypocrisy. Andrew frequently critiques single motherhood and blended family outcomes, yet he is a stepfather in a marriage where his wife had 3 children from prior relationships. Andrew responded later, giving clarification on his views about the whole situation.
Now, another massive attack, which comes basically from uninformed hoaxers online, is the argument from hypocrisy, the tu quo. The idea here is that Andrew Wilson is a hypocrite as he attacks single mothers, but married a single mother himself.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before. If Andrew Wilson met a woman like his wife with 3 baby daddies on the whatever podcast, he would shame her, call her a hoe, and tell her she's damaged goods and essentially unlovable. I want people to understand that they are hypocrites.
By the way, this is a self-defeating argument, as why would I be attacking single mothers if I married a single mother? It's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I don't attack them at all. If a person has a terrible position, right, or they're advocating for some sort of evil degeneracy, perhaps prostitution, perhaps stripping, perhaps any number of various degenerate acts which people tend to engage in and then move into the justification mode for, and then say those are good things or society should be moving towards these types of things, I will definitely attack those positions, and often brutally. That's the purpose of debate. But to say that I attack women for just being single moms is insane.
He defended being a stepfather as commendable, although unlikely for healthy long-term outcomes, and even asked Charlie mid-debate whether critics would have preferred Rachel abort her children before they met, and argued that personal attacks on his family crossed the line even in a heated debate.
Did I bring
women? Do they know
Charlie?
that
Did I bring your family?
5 years older?
Did I bring any of your family into anything?
Stupid.
Did I say anything about your family being stupid, Charlie?
You could.
It's
You could
because
go
I'm
for it.
better than you, Charlie.
No, it's because you're embarrassed.
The question now becomes, was Andrew's retort justified? From a Christian Orthodox perspective, opinions are split. Defending one's wife and family is natural and protective, but the profane, explosive tone clashed with calls for charity, patience, and self-control in Scripture. Many Christian voices online noted that while the personal shot was unfair towards his family, his reaction did not model the proper Christian ethics. Most of his audience were and still are in heavy support of his comments because that is the Andrew Wilson they know. This type of language is a big reason for why he's grown so much in popularity, regardless of whether it was morally justified or not. From a secular viewpoint, most saw it as understandable human emotion. A public figure having his real-life family dragged into a debate he himself frames around traditional morality. However, the intensity and profanity were widely viewed as losing frame and undermine the no-mercy logical destroyer persona they see him to be cultivating. Did Charlie goad him for a clip? Or was it genuine curiosity? Charlie later clarified in her own Instagram reel and interviews that the point was substantive, highlighting perceived hypocrisy in Andrew Wilson's worldview rather than pure character assassination. She maintained it was a factual observation tied to the debate topic. Critics called it deliberate clickbait designed to provoke a viral meltdown. The truth likely sits in the middle. It was a pointed personal jab in a long adversarial debate which lasted over 6 hours, but it succeeded spectacularly as content. The clip went mega viral, spawning reaction videos, memes, and think pieces labeling Andrew Wilson as a red-pill grifter exposed by his own standards. It amplified the existing scrutiny of his blended family life versus his public traditionalism. But fair is fair, Andrew did address this publicly years ago.
I met my wife. My wife had children from her basically high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And then she was married and divorced. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out.
Yeah.
But same thing. She completely devoted her life to me.
Yeah.
She's been fantastic. Now,
Did you come with kids as well, or no?
No,
you didn't come with children.
And people always, I get a lot of shit for that.
Yeah.
But what's funny is it's not a contrary position to understand that there's going to be outliers who are
Yeah, of
single
course.
moms.
Yeah.
But still having the general rule that you probably shouldn't date single moms.
Yeah.
Still true.
Yeah.
I think we can agree there's a
Still
gray
true.
area.
Should this prior justification and clarity give cadence to his position? And do his opinions on blended families hold any truth today, at least within modern society? The accusation that Andrew Wilson is a red-pill grifter is one of the most common criticisms against him in online discourse, particularly after high emotional moments like the exchange with enemy Charlie that we just discussed. Critics argue he profits from selling a hyper-traditional, anti-feminist based Christian worldview to young men while personally living in ways that appear to contradict his public messaging. Articles and reaction videos frequently label him as a grifter for allegedly bashing single mothers, low commitment culture, and blended families, only to be married to Rachel Wilson, who had children from 2 prior relationships. The charge is that he monetizes outrage, clip-friendly dunks, and manosphere-adjacent rhetoric through the Crucible, Piers Morgan panels, frequent whatever appearances, and more, without fully embodying the strict standards his detractors claim he preaches. Many of Andrew's core statements contain genuine substance and are not fabricated. He accurately highlights well-documented trends, such as declining marriage and birth rates in the West, higher divorce initiation rates by women, statistical risks associated with single motherhood, biological sex differences in strength, aggression, and male preferences. His critiques of modern feminism impact on family formation, the illusion of complete gender egalitarianism, and the long-term instability of purely secular ethics often align with sociological data and evolutionary psychology findings. Supporters point out that he consistently rejects the more toxic elements of mainstream red pill culture in favor of orthodox Christian framing, which adds a layer of foundational moral structure. The grifter label sticks in areas where the rhetoric lacks full substance or invites charges of hypocrisy. The personal life is the clearest weakness for his critics. Andrew strongly warns against the cultural patterns of serial relationships and non-traditional family structures, yet he has built a stable, blended family as a stepfather. While he defends this as real-world grace and commitment rather than casual degeneracy, critics argue it undermines the absolutist tone of his warnings. His aggressive debate style and frequent profanity use or personal jabs, like the body-shaming remarks or explosive reactions, can feel more optimized for viral clips and audience engagement rather than charitable persuasion or consistent Christian witness. Additionally, some of his broader claims, such as framing rights almost entirely through his forced doctrine or questioning aspects of women's suffrage without detailed policy alternatives, come across as provocative assertions rather than rigorously developed arguments. Granted, he does address a lot of these policy changes and suggestions in a subscriber-only VODs library on his website, but they do not get the same attention as his viral exchanges get. In the end, I don't believe Andrew is a grifter, even if he jokingly claims he is. In the sense of inventing facts for profit, many of his observations about cultural decline and sex differences are grounded in reality. What fuels the accusation is the perceived gap between his uncompromising public brand and the nuances of his own life and delivery of arguments. From a secular view, this makes him another content creator, tailoring sharp takes to an audience hungry for anti-woke validation. From a Christian perspective, it raises legitimate questions about whether his approach bears the fruit of humility and charity expected in Orthodox tradition. The truth likely lies in the middle, a debater with real insights who sometimes prioritize winning the room over perfect consistency. As a self-proclaimed blood sports debater, are these the correct priorities for him and the current cultural climate? One of Andrew's most debatable sources of controversy, how does he make his money? Andrew Wilson generates his income primarily through a mix of YouTube ad revenue and memberships from the Crucible, paid offerings tied to Debate University, but most notably, a heavy reliance on live stream donations and super chats. Episodes on Whatever and his own channel frequently see spikes in viewer-supported TTS messages and super chats, with individual donations commonly reaching hundreds of dollars and total hauls per stream often hitting several thousand USD. Andrew has also been seen giving away large sums himself, such as sending $3,000 to a young married couple for a honeymoon.
Are you religious?
I am. I'm Christian.
Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that why you got married young?
Yeah, I would say that's the main reason for sure. Like, I don't think that there's really any reason to date.
Well, I want to show this chick what privilege actually looks like. So the Crucible is going to send you $3,000 so that you and your husband can go on a honeymoon. You can go fuck yourself, you anti-atheist fucking scumbag. Go yourself, you scumbag. Her only crime was that she's happily married and you can't fucking stand it. You.
I never said that. I never said that.
Even when being charitable, Andrew has a way of riling up himself and his opponents through cultural rhetoric. Regardless, fans praise him as generous while critics see it as performative. The morality of this model sits at the heart of ongoing criticism. Andrew positions himself as a defender of traditional Christian values and an opponent of modern degeneracy. Yet he thrives in the same attention-driven, controversy-fueled ecosystems he critiques, although he has never stated receiving donations as being immoral. Supporters argue the donations reflect genuine audience appreciation for his no-mercy debate style and entertainment. It also helps sustain a platform fighting the current secular drift in the West. A frequent moral comparison is drawn between Andrew's income model and Onlyfans creators. Both monetize content centered on sexuality, gender, and morality in the online attention economy. OnlyFans workers directly commodify sexual performance and explicit imagery, the exact degeneracy Andrew rails against. Andrew, by contrast, monetizes opposition to that world, anti-feminist rhetoric, traditional ideals, and viral crashouts. Secular observers often see them as equivalent sides of the same coin, both entrepreneurs turning cultural tension around sex and relationships into income. From a Christian Orthodox perspective, the difference is stark. OnlyFans participates in the moral decay, while Andrew's content actively resists it. The tension still remains. Is profiting from moral combat in the same digital arena as the degenerates he opposes truly consistent with the humility and detachment his faith emphasizes? In the end, his donation-heavy model is transparent and audience-driven, rather than being a hidden sponsorship grift. But it fuels the reoccurring Red-Pill Grifter narrative precisely because it turns his uncompromising worldview into a sustainable business. Whether that makes him a principled warrior or just another content creator optimizing for engagement is part of the broader morality mystery that follows him and the people he clashes with. In one of the more chaotic episodes of Whatever, Dating Talk number 234, Andrew Wilson got into a heated exchange with a Marxist feminist guest. While debating consent and gender issues, Andrew mocks her aggressively, to put it lightly, leading to this viral moment, even going as far as threatening violence.
Kindly get the f*** out and leave.
You're a little man, Brian. You're a tiny little man.
Thank you.
You too. I saw your discussion with the crew.
Get
girl,
the f*** out.
I just want to say that
Get the f*** out, lady. Get out.
You sound like you're deaf and you're freaking stupid.
Get the
fuck out of here.
What if we just go get this outside? What if we talk about it?
You're gonna physically assault me?
No, let's go outside. I want to talk about it.
You should stop.
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it.
You're not talking.
I think she's gonna hit.
I want to
Are you
talk
gonna
about
hit?
Oh my God.
Don't do it.
I think Priscilla,
Don't talk about it with yourself.
Priscilla, this is not making it better.
No, how about we talk
Priscilla,
about it
this
together?
is not
How about
making anything better.
When you make fun of me, you look at me in my eyes.
Oh man, look at my eyes. I'm looking in your eyes.
Let's go.
I could just
Andrew, just stop. Just get out.
Let's de-escalate a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll walk it out.
Yeah, let's.
Priscilla, go that way. Priscilla, go that way.
Girl, I don't feel safe. You don't want to make the other girls feel safe. Let's go.
Go that way. Go that way.
Come on. Come on.
Go that. Don't walk this way.
You disgust me. All of your followers disgust me. You guys are disgusting, misogynistic, tiny little men. I hope you understand that. Thank you.
She had to be removed from the set after the confrontation escalated. Andrew's defenders called it a classic example of his no mercy style exposing emotional fragility, while critics argued he deliberately provoked her with personal mockery instead of staying on ideas, something Andrew often critiques others of. Did he go too far? From a secular viewpoint, sharp mockery is common in blood sports debating, and her aggressive approach crossed into potential assault. From an Orthodox Christian perspective, though, the personal tone clashed with call for charity and turning the other cheek, even if her reaction was disproportionate. The clip remains a prime example of how his rhetoric can turn debates into near physical confrontations. Andrew Wilson appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience number 2444 on January 28th, 2026, where he discussed Christian nationalism, culture wars, power dynamics, and his Orthodox worldview with Rogan for several hours. The appearance drew heavy criticism from figures like Destiny, who accused Andrew of getting softballed by Rogan and spreading reductive takes on rights, feminism, and force without enough pushback.
Well, I like how he switched from from murderers and assassins to bullhorns and lesbians. This is why I never trust a man when he talks about who are the people committing those violence or whatever. It will be anything besides saying that if it's white or male, they never mention it, right? Like all the shit that they just mentioned. Notice how all of them were white? You never heard that, right? And then we were just talking about violence. Now we're talking about women on SSRIs. Well, isn't it crazy? Oh, look at all the shooters. Weren't they? Wait. Oh, not the shooters. The people on the loudspeakers. Like, excuse me. What about the fact that all the shooters are men? Right? All of them were too, because that one trans person you consider a man as well. So, but nothing to say about that, right? What about the fact that a lot of these people were young and mega online mind-fucked? Nobody. I don't think I heard anybody. Maybe a couple people mention that. Nobody seemed to give a fuck that. Isn't it kind of weird? You're Tyler Robinson's, you're that Antifa person, that these guys seem like crazy schizo online people. Maybe? Isn't that kind of weird? And they're young? That's kind of crazy, right?
Critics claimed Andrew didn't deserve the platform because his views were too extreme or poorly defended for a mainstream audience. Supporters argued it was a well-earned spot after many years of grinding smaller debates, and Rogan's long-form format allowed Andrew to explain his positions more fully than short-form clips allow. Whether he quote-unquote deserved it remains debated. From a secular lens, platforming is earned through audience demand and interesting ideas. From a traditional Christian view, the question is whether the appearance advanced truthful biblical ethics or simply boosted visibility for his own brand and image. Lastly, in another Wild Whatever episode, a female guest became unhinged during a debate with Andrew after denying her a high five. She stood up, revealed her buttocks to him, and aggressively tried to rub up against him in a provocative and confrontational manner.
Yeah.
High five.
So just so you know, I don't want to touch you. Don't want to touch you. But here's the thing, right? No, don't do it. Don't touch me. Don't.
It's that dangerous?
Nick, you
My ass is literally that dangerous?
Andrew remained relatively composed while production intervened. The moment was widely shared as evidence of the unhinged behavior he sometimes provokes within his opponents, with critics saying his blunt style attracts or escalates such reactions. Supporters viewed it as a validation of his warnings about modern degeneracy and emotional instability. From both Orthodox and secular perspectives, her actions were clearly inappropriate and crossed into assault territory. Side note, I realize there are countless other moments and events that could have easily made this video. Let me know in the comments which ones I missed. So this leads us to the big question. Is Andrew Wilson a hypocritical grifter? Andrew's public persona invites the question of moral hypocrisy more persistently than most figures in the debate space. He presents as a recent convert to Eastern Orthodoxy, anchoring his entire framework in historic Christian ethics, objective morality, and the fruit of the Spirit: humility, grace, patience, and charity. Yet his no mercy debate style, frequent profanity, personal jabs, and explosive reactions, notably the 3 Baby Daddies crash out, sit in visible tension with those ideals. But do they break those ideals? Or just bend them? The blended family dynamic adds another layer. Andrew strongly critiques cultural patterns of serial relationships, single motherhood, and non-traditional family structures on statistical and theological grounds. Yet he is a stepfather in a marriage where Rachel had children from 2 prior relationships. He has addressed this directly, framing their story as one of commitment and grace rather than casual degeneracy, and for many, this justifies the consistent traditional rhetoric he pushes, even if he self-labels as an exception to what is optimal in society. From a strict Orthodox view, this invites scrutiny regarding teachings on marriage, divorce, and remarriage. From a secular lens, can an argument be made for rules for thee, but not for me? On the Red-Pill Grifter charge, Andrew's core observations about declining birth rates, family outcomes, sex differences, and the instability of purely secular ethics often align with data. The gap between his uncompromising brand and the nuances of his own life, combined with donation-heavy monetization models, fuels the accusation. He monetizes opposition to the very commodification and attention economy he critiques. Attention secular observers compared to Onlyfans creators, both turning cultural conflict around sex and morality into income, though Andrew positions his work as resistance rather than participation. Taken as a whole, Andrew Wilson is not a cartoon hypocrite inventing positions for profit. Many of his cultural diagnoses have substantive grounding. At the same time, the reoccurring morality mystery is real. The sword-like deployment of Christianity in debate, the profane delivery, the personal family contrast, and the profit model all sit uncomfortably alongside the humility, grace, and self-control his adopted Orthodox faith emphasizes. Whether this reflects a flawed but coherent man navigating real-world messiness in a fallen world, or a debater who prioritizes winning clips and engagement over consistent Christian ethics, remains the central unresolved tension in the public domain. So there it is, the curious, complicated, and often contradictory rise of Andrew Wilson, blue-collar mechanic turned blood sports debater, recent Orthodox convert, and one of the most polarizing voices in the online culture war. From his forced doctrine and unapologetic defense of the patriarchy, to viral crash-outs, olive jar memes, and accusations of hypocrisy, Andrew has built a platform that refuses easy categorization. The morality mystery remains at the heart of it all. Does his aggressive delivery and profane rhetoric truly align with the ethics he claims to live by? Is this the rise, the peak, or the fall? And what real risks is he undertaking by pushing such uncompromising far-right positions in an increasingly tense cultural climate? Most importantly, what moral questions does Andrew himself continue to struggle with behind the sharp rhetoric? He's not a cartoon villain or a flawless hero. He's a complicated figure who turned personal experience, hard-earned logic, and a recent conversion into a very public intellectual fight. Whether this approach represents coherent conviction tested by life's messiness or highlights deeper gaps between preached ideals and lived reality is something only time, and perhaps Andrew Wilson himself, will ultimately reveal. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.